Lakshya, and today I'm here to explain you about class 9th ICSE, the second chapter, the cell. Okay, so what is cell? Is this the cell, or are you thinking of this cell? No, not at all. Cell is the smallest living microorganism. So we can say that cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Alright? And cell is the basic fundamental unit of life, we can also say. So now let's learn about the discovery of the cell. So who discovered the cell? Firstly, cell is being discovered by Antony van Leeuwenhoek, a Dutch lens maker as well a microscopist. He made few observations through his microscope that a raindrop. He took a raindrop, observed few microorganisms inside the raindrop. Let me draw here for better understanding as well. Okay, so these were a few microorganisms. So he made few observations inside these microorganisms and he saw these organisms and he named these as what? Animalcules. Okay. Animalcules. Okay, animalcules. But he did not term the cell, but he said these organisms as animalcules. And then came the Robert Hooke. So this Robert Hooke, he firstly discovered the cell as he scraped the bark of a tree. He took a bit cork of cork and he placed under his microscope. He made similar observations of the cells and he got to see the tiny, tiny compartments. Okay, a very small and a tiny compartments. He named these compartments as what? Cells. Cell is the term coined by Robert Hooke then. And then we got two scientists here. So they were M.J. Sheldon and Schwann. So this Sheldon made few observations on what? Plant cell. Let's write down here M.J. Sheldon. Okay. Leiden. And Schwann over here. So Schwann. So M.J. Sheldon made few observations on plant cells and Schwann on animal cell. They both together formed cell theory. So cell theory by Sheldon and Schwann. Then came the Rudolf Virchow. He postulated three principles. So those three principles are, the first principle is cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life, as we all know. So the first one is cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. And the second one is organisms are made up of what? Cells. So organisms are made up of one or more than one cell. Okay? Organisms are made up of one or more than one cell. For instance, you have bacteria, amoeba. They are single-celled organisms, mean unicellular organisms, and we, the humans, we are multicellular organisms because we include lots and lots of cells. Like we have millions and billions and trillions of cells. So we are said to be the multicellular organisms. So single-celled organisms are unicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms are the more than one cell organisms. And next you have the the third principle is the very important and an interesting principle. So this is the cells arise from the pre-existing cells, guys. As mean cells, they arise from the pre-existing cells. When I keep my hand, when I open it, there won't be any cells which filled out or they can't produce by themselves, but they arise from the pre-existing cells. As a zygote, as we all know, this is the zygote, right? When after the fertilization you can get this zygote, and zygote it breaks into two parts, and into 4 and into 6 and into 8, and you have a number of cell which forms and which takes place tissue to organ to human body. So this is the best example to say that cells arise from the pre-existing cell. As you can see, from one cell you have the multi-cells which are being produced. And the next one, yes, after this you have after Rudolph-Virchow 3 statements, you have the microscope. As we all know, we can see cells only through microscope. You have simple microscope, compound microscope, and electron microscope. Simple microscope is made up of a single lens. So the lens is the convex lens. Okay, we can just say the convex lens. And the compound microscope, it is the microscope made up of more than 2 lenses as well, and it can we can see into the compound microscope 1500 times to its original size. Okay, how many times? 1500 times. Okay, 1500 times to its original size. And when we come to the electron microscope, is made up of advanced lenses, and we can see into it 2 lakhs times, guys. Not 1 time or 2 times, but 2 lakhs times into its original size. Alright, so this is how we can just see the electron microscope and the compound microscope. So through electron microscope we can easily observe all the elements such as Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, lysosomes, centriosomes, peroxisomes, or chloroplasts, etc. and etc. And now, yes, cell size, shape, and their different cell size, cell shape, and their function. So cells differ from each other based upon their size. They differ from each other based upon their shape. For example, let's say nerve cells. So nerve cells are the longest cells. Alright. So they differ from they have different types of shape that they perform different types of function. And the bacteria, it has different type of shape that it performs different function. So each cell has different shapes, such as you have spherical shape, oval shape, circle shape, and slipper-like shape, like paramecium has a slipper-like shape, exactly look like a slipper. And you have chlamydomonas, or etc. and etc. So they differ from each other. So based upon their size, based upon their shape, they perform different type of function. For example, we are the human. So my hand cells differ from my nerve cells. Thus they perform different function. And my tongue cells are different from my eye cells. So these are something. And next, you have the smallest cell is the mycoplasm cells. So its bacterium is about 0.1 micrometers. Okay, so 0.1 microns. Cell is actually measured through microns. I mean micrometers. Okay, and you have the largest cell. Largest cell is a bird cell. So the bird is ostrich over here. So ostrich egg is 170. 170 into 135 mm. Okay, so this is how the ostrich eggs be. So this is the size of the cell of the ostrich egg. This is the largest cell ever, and the bacterium mycoplasma bacteria is about 0.1. And next, you have the longest cell, which is the nerve cells. They help us to pass the communication system. Helps to easily communicate something. And you have muscle cells. They helps to move our body easily. So they perform different functions based upon the shapes. And next, okay, as you all know, unicellular and multicellular organisms, and then you have the J.E. Purkinje. Okay, J.E. Purkinje. So he discovered the protoplasm. So he said that protoplasm is something that it is a living fluid inside the cell. It's a living substance, we can easily say. Well, so this protoplasm, it consists of organic and inorganic materials. It also has 70, let me take another marker, yeah, 75% of water in it, and 10 to 15% of carbohydrates, so carbohydrates. He made these similar observations under the microscope. So he said that 10 to 15% of carbohydrates it has, and 2 to 10% of proteins, and 1 to 10% of what? Fats in it. And 1% of minerals. It do contains, okay, 1% of minerals, and yes, it also has nucleic acids. Hope so you understood today's concept and today's lesson chapter, so part 1, and I will back again with the part 2 as soon as possible. Till then, take care. Bye bye.